Hello and welcome to this video running through how to use our Paper 2 Question 5 planning resource. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you the QR code and you can scan this and it'll take you directly to the PDF. I'll also ensure that your teachers have shared the PDF with you via Google Classroom too. So if you do want to just directly access a PDF, the QR code is on the screen. And the purpose really of this video is to show you exactly how to use the planning document. I don't want anyone opening the PDF, sort of just randomly scrolling through it and thinking, well, what am I supposed to be doing with this? The resource has been very carefully designed to help you prepare for the writing question, Paper 2 Question 5, by giving you that repeatable structure, the same structure and framework that you've been using for Paper 2 Question 5 throughout the course of this academic year in Year 11. So the topics might change in the exam, but the way that we need to be thinking, planning, and building our arguments can stay the same. The aim is not about memorizing full answers. The aim with this document and this video more generally is to practice how to build a powerful and convincing viewpoint really quickly and also very confidently. I've also listed on the screen for you here, you've got the QR code again, but the various topics that are actually included and discussed and planned for in the document too. And I've tried to look at past papers and maybe what's quite topical and the sorts of things that the exam board AQA like to potentially ask about that feel suitable for this sort of task for 16-year-olds sitting their English language Paper 2 Question 5 task. So I've tried to make it feel exam board sort of realistic and authentic, and those are the various topics that are included. Okay, so what is question 5 really testing? So question 5 isn't just a test of whether you've got opinions. Everyone has opinions. What the examiner is looking for and what they're trained to look for is whether or not you can shape your views, your opinions, your ideas into a really effective and indeed persuasive piece of writing. So this means that our writing needs to read and sound planned. It needs to have a clear direction. It needs to move from problem to argument to solution and then to a really memorable and engaging ending. So this document, as I've just laid out, is all about possible topics that could work well for Paper 2 Question 5 preparation. But I want to, in this video, be really clear with you. This is not a prediction list. The point is not to just gamble as a student on one topic coming up. The point is to train our brains to respond to any topic that they might ask us about in a structured and thoughtful way. If you practice the method that is outlined in this video, and it's just the method you've been practicing all year, you will be so much better prepared whether the exam task is about social media, the environment, health, poverty, travel, animals, education, technology, you name it. It could be something completely different. Whatever it is, we've trained our brains to think in this really thoughtful, careful, planned, methodical way. So the reason why the document and why I've been using the same framework, the same planning framework over the course of this year, and every single time we write a Paper 2 Question 5 is because under the demands of exam pressure, we need a reliable route through the question and the task. You do not want to be sat there in the exam thinking, how do I start? Or what should my second paragraph be? This structure gives us a quick way in. It helps our responses feel deliberate, feel really carefully structured and shaped, and then it avoids that sense of we just produced a sort of random list of points for our response. Now, the first thing that we should be doing with any question 5 task is to slow down and read the question, the task very carefully, and ask yourself the following questions. What is the topic? What is the statement or the viewpoint? Who am I writing for? Am I writing an article, a letter, a speech, a leaflet, or an essay? Then we need to be looking for words from the question that we can reuse in our opening. This will immediately make our response and our answer feel a lot more focused. So, for example, if the task says social media is damaging young people's confidence and concentration spans, our opening needs to be using those exact same ideas. social media, young people, confidence, concentration, mental health. And this is going to stop us from drifting away from the focus of the task. Now, before we go any further into the planning resource and how to use it, it's worth reminding ourselves that Paper 2 Question 5 can ask us as students to write in a range of different forms. So you might be asked to write an article, a speech, a letter, an essay, or the text for something like a blog, potentially. Now, the good news is this. The planning method, the resource, the structure and framework we've been using still works for all of them. You still need a clear viewpoint. You still need big ideas. You still need examples, statistics, emotional appeals, and solutions. You still need to organize your writing carefully. But the form does and it should affect how our writing sounds, how it reads. So if you're writing an article, you need to sound engaging and opinionated. You'd normally include things like a headline, and your opening should grab your reader's attention quickly. If we're writing a speech, remember that it's meant to be spoken out loud to an audience. And that means things like direct address become really useful. Phrases like you, we, our generation, and all of us in the room. Rhetorical questions, repetition, and short sentences also work really well in speeches because they create rhythm and emphasis, and they are easily remembered when speaking aloud. If you're writing a letter, we need to think very carefully about who we are writing to. A letter to your head teacher, for example, would sound different from a letter to a local newspaper. You need an appropriate greeting, a clear reason for writing, and a controlled and more formal tone. If we're writing a leaflet, it's all about clarity. You can use things like subheadings, short sections, and of course, direct address because you'll be giving advice. But don't make it too thin. It still needs to be persuasive and carefully written. If you're writing an essay, you usually need a more formal and developed, kind of balanced tone. It should feel logical, it should feel very controlled, clear paragraphs, and the paragraphing should build your argument over the course of the essay. So the key message is this. The form changes the voice, the way we perhaps sound in our writing, but it really doesn't remove the need for careful, strong, structured planning. Whatever form we get given on the day, use the same core framework. Address your audience, establish your viewpoint, develop big idea 1 and 2, and end with a clear and memorable conclusion. Okay, so in the resource that you hopefully are looking at now, each plan that I provided gives you the introductory sentences that use words just taken from the question. And this is not because you have to copy them exactly, it's because you need to learn the habit. A weak opening might be something like, this is a very important issue in society today. That could be about absolutely anything. A better opening names the issue clearly and immediately shows the examiner that you understand the task. So, we move on. Anecdotes. Why are anecdotes powerful? Well, they're powerful because they turn an issue into a person or a moment or even a little scene. So instead of starting with a general statement about poverty, you might begin with the image of a student arriving at school without breakfast. Instead of starting with a general statement about the impact of social media on young people, you might begin with a year 11 student trying to revise while their phone keeps pinging and lighting up with notifications. We're not writing some kind of story for our whole answer. We're just using one brief human moment to hook the reader and therefore to make this potentially quite abstract issue feel very real. Now, sharp rhetorical questions. We talk about in the planning grid about embedding an isolated rhetorical question. And what this means is one short question placed by itself, usually after the anecdote. Don't overuse rhetorical questions. 3 or 4 in a row can sound a bit forced, but one sharp, isolated rhetorical question can be really, really effective. It gives your argument a central challenge. It engages the reader. And of course, we return to it at the end. Now, the dystopia, the extended metaphor, this is where our writing can start to feel really powerful. We want to describe the current problem as a kind of dystopia. In other words, you want to show what's broken or what's unfair or dangerous or damaging about the situation. And the extended metaphor gives your writing that really strong voice. So for social media, you might describe it as a web. For poverty, you might use the image of a chain, the metaphor of a chain. For climate change, a fire. For unhealthy food, a tide swallowing people up. The trick is to keep developing that metaphor. We're not throwing in loads of random images, we're choosing one core metaphor and we are extending it. Now, big idea one even, okay, jumping ahead. Big idea one. This is usually where we start to show that our argument is balanced and mature. And we can do that by recognizing the opposing view. So, for example, we might say something like this. Some people argue that social media helps young people stay connected. That's a fair point. But then you move into your argument. However, connection without boundaries can become dependence. This is a lot stronger than just engaging in a bit of a rant about social media. It shows the examiner that you can think carefully and in a balanced and nuanced way. Then we can use a statistic or a source, an expert source, to make our point feel credible and backed up with evidence. Now, the document that I've shared with you, that hopefully you're looking at now, includes a whole range of real facts and statistics from sources such as the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, the NHS, Ofcom, the body that monitors and controls the way that media organizations work. It also includes reference to government research and even animal welfare charities. Now, I'm not asking you to memorize every number perfectly. That's ridiculous. But just having a few credible references, ONS, NHS, Ofcom, government research, just having those credible references in your head can make your writing sound so much more convincing. So listen, for example, we might write something like, according to the ONS. That sounds a lot more authoritative than writing loads of people think or lots of my mates think. It doesn't sound authoritative at all. So remember, the statistic doesn't do the work for you, though. You still need to explain why it matters. The statistic is there to support your argument. It's not there to replace your argument. There's no point in just saying, according to the ONS, and then give the statistic. Why is that statistic meaningful and important? That's your job to explain that. Okay, big idea two. This is where we further develop our argument. And this is where we would bring in potentially another expert source. It could be teachers, doctors, scientists, charities, government research. Then we make a really emotional plea. This is where we remind our reader what is at stake. Then we encourage you to use things like imperatives. These are commands, sometimes in primary school called bossy sentences. They make our writing sound really urgent and direct. We might write something like, if we're thinking of imperatives, protect sleep, reclaim concentration, put the phone away. Protect, reclaim, put. Command, command, command. A list, a string, a triple of three imperatives. So when we use them carefully and sparingly in this particular moment, imperatives can make our writing feel really, really powerful, urgent, and persuasive. Okay, we're not just complaining. Now, I think this is such a big difference. It really marks out the difference between poor to average responses and really high-end strong responses. And the difference is that really strong responses offer solutions. They don't just complain for two sides of A4. If the issue is poverty, what should schools, councils, and governments actually do? If the issue is social media, what should parents, schools, and technology companies actually do? If the issue is travel, what should tourists and travel companies actually do? Solutions, rather than just laying out problems, solutions make us sound thoughtful, mature, and purposeful. No one likes just a string of complaints. It's fine to point out the problems, that's important, okay? But what are we going to do? What are some of your recommended solutions? And then ending, okay? We'd say end with control. We don't want an ending that just sort of fizzles out. We return to the rhetorical question in a cyclical way that we asked near the start. We return to that at the end. And then what we do is we actually answer that rhetorical question in our conclusion with certainty. We describe a better, brighter, almost utopian future. We use inclusive pronouns like we because it brings the reader into our argument. And this gives our writing a really obvious, particularly obvious for the examiner, a really obvious sense of shape. The examiner can see super clearly that you have deliberately returned to your opening idea and completed the argument. Okay, so we're going to return to the planning resource specifically and think, all right, okay, this is all well and good, Mr. Boff, but how do I actually practically, I'm sat in my room at home, I'm sat at the dinner table, okay, doing revision. How do I use this thing? Okay, here are some suggestions. The first way will be to actually use the resource for quick planning practice. Look at the task, look at the prompt at the top, pick a topic, and then give yourself 5 minutes. Don't look at the planning grid, okay, just look at the task, then give yourself 5 minutes. You're not writing the full answer, of course, just create the plan. And this is going to train us with the kind of train us to follow the structure, train the exact skill that we need in an exam. Quick thinking and organizing our ideas under time pressure. Then compare your plan to the plan I've given you, and you can purple pen and you can upskill. A second way to actually use a resource would be to practice super high quality engaging openings. A strong opening gives you confidence, and it also gives the examiner confidence that your answer is controlled from the very beginning. Choose one of the topics that I've laid out for you, and then just write the first section up. The introduction, the anecdote, rhetorical question, and the dystopian metaphor. That would be enough for, a short revision session at home. Another way we could also use a document, the document I provided you with, would be to just practice paragraph at a time. The big idea paragraphs. Take big idea 1 or indeed big idea 2 from any of the plan and turn those notes, practice turning those notes into a paragraph. Think about, okay, have I recognized the opposing view? Have I given my own view clearly? Have I perhaps used a statistic? Explain the emotional importance? Have I offered a solution? That one paragraph could be 10, 12 lines of writing. It doesn't need to be a full answer every time. We're just practicing that process of notes being turned into writing. And then another really useful way of using this would be to build a bank of adaptable phrases. And these are phrases that could be used across any topic, okay? And practice using them across a range of topics. So, for example, some people argue that is a really useful turn of phrase, an adaptable phrase, you might say, for social media, poverty, climate change, AI, animals, health, travel, whatever. It's going to help you sound really fluent even when the topic potentially is unforeseen and unexpected. So building and practicing using this kind of bank of adaptable phrases, really useful revision activity. And then remember, this document is giving you notes. It's giving you notes, a plan in the same framework for all sorts of different topic areas, tasks that they might give you in the exam. And obviously in the exam, you turn those notes in your plan into writing. So practice using these the various plans I've given you and turn them into an entire written response. A bullet point like poverty is a chain could become 3 really powerful sentences. Here's an example, okay? So we go from like poverty is a chain, fine, but listen to this. Poverty is a chain. It tightens around families, restricting their choices, limiting their dignity, and holding children back before they've even had the chance to begin. That's the skill we want to practice, turning ideas and notes into crafted writing. Okay, few traps to avoid though. We're not trying to memorize entire answers, okay? If the exam question turns out to be different, it's not going to help you. Don't just revise one of the topics in this document, this kind of pack of documents as well, okay? The point is all about flexibility. We don't know what's going to come up. We don't just throw in random statistics. They also need to be employed to support your argument. And more importantly, most importantly, we would say, don't ignore the actual question right in front of you. The resource that I've given you, that I'm providing with you, and obviously you can scan the QR code, the resource is there to help you think, okay? It's not there to replace your thinking. It's there to help you think quickly, practically, and under timed exam pressure. And then finally, or penultimately, okay, in the exam, we've got to plan. We need to spend a few minutes planning, not 20 minutes, okay? Otherwise, we're not going to have enough time to write the response. Not no minutes. It's going to be unstructured garbage. We need around 5 minutes of planning and use the framework quickly. Decide anecdote, rhetorical question, metaphor, 2 big ideas, problem solution, ending. Then we start writing. A short plan will save you actually from panicking. It'll save you from just repeating the same old ideas again and again, and it will stop you running out of things to say. So remember this key thing. We're not trying to memorize the exact topic. We're trying to master the method, this method of planning and preparation. Question 5 in paper 2 rewards students who can think clearly, who can organize their ideas, who can write with control, and who can persuade their reader. So use the document actively. You're not just reading over it. Plan with it, practice openings, practice a paragraph at a time, learn some of these useful statistics and flexible phrases, and practice using them. The topic can change. I'm not Nostradamus. I can't see into the future. The topic can change, but the structure can stay. And this, Year 11, is how we prepare properly. So I hope that's been a useful video for you. Make sure that you go back over any aspects of the video that you need to. Use the planning and preparation pack that I put together for you. And as always, best of luck in your real Paper 2 exam.